Will, it was a massive blowout win for the Vikings yesterday at US Bank Stadium in front of a raucous crowd. Now the Vikings don't return home for another couple weeks because they're on the road overseas for a couple games, and then they get the bye week. So it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back or continue to build off that win yesterday. But the question I have, because it's been three very up and down performances from this team over the first 3 weeks. 2-1, so they've got a winning record. They sit atop the NFC North, which we can talk about that in a little bit. But I have a question for you. What do you know for sure about this Vikings team? It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot that we can solidify after 3 weeks of what we do know for sure. So, what do you know for sure about this Vikings team going forward into the 2025 season?
Yeah, one thing I know for sure after watching Sunday's game and this whole season so far is that the defense is going to be really good when they're healthy. And so far, 2 out of 3 games they've played well on defense. I mean, they started a little slow in Chicago, but kept the Vikings in that game throughout until JJ McCarthy could deliver the late heroics. And then obviously, I mean, yesterday was just an all-time defensive performance with the 2 Isaiah Rodgers touchdowns and 5 total takeaways and 4 sacks. It was just everything that we've come to not expect from a Brian Flores defense, because you're not going to do that very often, but just that style of attacking, confusing opposing offenses, coming up with takeaways. That looked like the 2024 Vikings in a lot of ways. In week 2, of course, the Falcons ran for over 200 yards on them, and it didn't go well. The Vikings still were in that game because they mostly held the Falcons to field goals all day. But they didn't have Andrew Van Ginkel in that game. They didn't have Blake Cashman in that game. They didn't have Harrison Smith in that game. So you can point to that a little bit. I'm confident that this Vikings defense, as long as their best players or most of their best players are healthy, they're going to be really good because of some of the contributions that they're also getting from young guys in the defensive tackle room, like Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez, and guys like Theo Jackson at safety, kind of not some of the established names. Like, we already knew that Jonathan Grenard was really good, and some of those other guys. But yeah, I think this defense is going to be really good. So there's other things I know about this Vikings team, I think, but that would probably be the one that jumps out the most.
I'll get some of those more, or some more of those in a little bit. But going on this defense, what we saw yesterday obviously was helped and aided by Harrison Smith's return. How big of an impact is he going to be for this Vikings defense going forward? I know he's up there in age. He didn't have much or any of a preseason, so it's going to be a little bit of a feeling out process and how much he can go throughout a week and throughout a game. So how much of an impact is his return to this Vikings defense, which, as you said, has been pretty good through the first 3 weeks? They're 12th in points allowed, 7th in yards allowed, tied for 3rd in sacks. So, and they're still pressuring the quarterback at a ridiculous rate. So what's his impact for this Vikings defense going forward?
Yeah, it's really high. I mean, he is a 36-year-old safety, but he's seen so much football in the NFL, and he's been here, like a lot of these guys have, for the entirety of the Flores era since 2023. Smith is just such a good communicator on the back end. I mean, there's a rep that's kind of gone viral that Alec Lewis posted on Twitter of the all 22 of the Vikings kind of doing like 3 or 4 different things before the snap and disguising and rotating into different looks. And Jake Browning just probably had no idea what he was seeing on that play. And it's very uniquely Brian Flores. And a big reason for that is that Harrison Smith is able to communicate those things. He's not necessarily the green dot player in the way that, Blake Cashman usually is. So right now I think it's still Eric Wilson at linebacker. But just Smith's ability to talk to the other guys in the secondary, maybe the linebackers in front of him. I mean, sometimes he's up at the line of scrimmage and he could be talking to Grenard or Van Ginkel or whoever. That is really valuable in terms of being able to run those super complex looks. And then he could still play too. I mean, the Isaiah Rodgers 87-yard pick six, who created that? It was Harrison Smith making an acrobatic kind of backpedaling deflection of a ball that probably otherwise would have been complete, and instead it turns into Rodgers going 87 the other way and putting the Vikings up 14-0. So yeah, Harrison Smith is a big piece of what the Vikings want to do still at this point in his career.
So the obvious pushback for the Vikings' good performances over the first 3 weeks is the quarterback play that they've been facing. Caleb Williams who is in his second season, hasn't looked that great. I mean, he had a great performance yesterday against Dallas. You got Michael Penix, who got run out of the building and got benched midway through a beatdown by the Panthers yesterday. And then you had Jake Browning, a backup quarterback, a career backup quarterback. Then going forward, you got Aaron Rodgers, who's looked up and down through the first 3 weeks, and then Joe Flacco coming up until you get the bye week, and then you return home and you face Jalen Hurts. So, how much of what we've seen over the first 3 weeks is down to just playing bad quarterbacks and taking advantage of it, and how much is this defense is for real?
Yeah, I think it's some of it. I think there's enough of a sample size of last year, including some games against good quarterbacks where they played well, to believe that this Vikings defense is legit, is not solely predicated on taking advantage of bad offenses. But at the same time, yeah, you're going to want to see them do it against a legit offense, given the troubles that they had with the Lions and Rams last year. And we're probably not going to see that, like you said, until the Eagles come to US Bank Stadium in a little under a month after the bye. So, yeah, it's a factor, but all you can do right now is play who's on your schedule, and they've done a mostly good job of that so far.
For sure. All right, what else do you know about this team after 3 weeks?
Yeah, it's kind of in the same mold, but I know that this offensive line is going to be really, really good when healthy, or is really good when healthy. We still haven't seen yet all five starters coming into the season play together, because they were without Christian Darrisaw for the first two games. Darrisaw comes back in week 3 and was awesome, but they didn't have Ryan Kelly. And then we thought, okay, all right, next week, Kelly's going to be back from the concussion protocol. They're going to have all five. And Donovan Jackson had wrist surgery this morning, Kevin O'Connell announced. And he played in that game in week 3 with an injured wrist, which the Vikings knew about and was determined that he wasn't going to make it any worse. But he has to have that surgery to get it fixed. And so now he's probably going to be out through the bye. So, yeah, we're not going to see the full five until at least the Eagles game. And hopefully nothing else comes up between now and then. But once we do see that five, and assuming we do see that five, I think this is going to be a really, really good line. Christian Darrisaw, I wrote about this on Vikings on SI and how good he was. I think he's the most valuable player on the Vikings roster, ahead of a quarterback, ahead of Justin Jefferson, ahead of anybody on defense, which would probably be Jonathan Grenard, I would say, is the most valuable player there. I think Christian Darrisaw is the most valuable player on the Vikings. Just the difference that he makes when he's out there versus not out there in the first 2 weeks was so evident against the Bengals. The way he controls things in the run game, the way he really made Trey Hendrickson, who is like one of the best pass rushers in the entire league, kind of a non-factor in that game.
Mm-hmm.
It's so impressive. He's so important to what the Vikings do. And Jackson looked good in that game. I mean, Kelly was good in the first 2 weeks before getting hurt. Will Fries has been solid so far. Brian O'Neill's been solid. Like, I think this offensive line is going to be really good once everybody's healthy.
If Darrisaw had played the first 2 games and we got to see all five starters across the line for the first 2 weeks, do we think differently about the rest of this offense? Do we think differently about JJ McCarthy, who I know after week 2 not looking great and not looking great through 7 of 8 quarters of his play in his debut season? Do we think differently if Christian Darrisaw is healthy and he has that time that Carson Wentz had yesterday?
Yeah, it's a really good question, a really good point. That I think a big reason why you can't fully evaluate JJ McCarthy, and it would be kind of ridiculous, I think, to write off a 22-year-old quarterback after 2 games regardless, or to make some sweeping judgment on who he is and who he's going to be. But the fact that he didn't get to play with Christian Darrisaw, like, let's at least wait and see how he does with number 71 out there before we write the book on McCarthy's career. Because Justin School, who the Vikings signed and thought was going to be a solid fill-in option, just wasn't, unfortunately, in the first 2 weeks, and was a big liability out there. And I'm not saying that is the entire reason why McCarthy struggled. He wasn't processing great. He was holding onto the ball too long and things like that. But we saw some similar things from Wentz at times, from Carson Wentz at times in week 3 early on. And then he got into a rhythm, and, he had Darrisaw out there, and he also has the benefit of way more NFL experience. But yeah, I think let's give McCarthy a chance once he's back, And again, that's a whole different conversation of will he be back if Wentz is playing well. But assuming that he starts again for the Vikings this season and perhaps as soon as that Eagles game, let's give him a chance to see what he looks like with Darisaw, who I just said I think is the most valuable player on this roster in the lineup in front of him.
All right, one final thing from you that you know for sure about this Vikings team after 3 weeks.
Yeah, I would say Jordan Mason is really good. Even you could broaden that even to the skill positions being really good. Um, like, yeah, I mean, basically we thought coming into this season, the defense was going to be really good, the offensive line was going to be really good, the skill positions are going to be really good. I think those are all true. I think that's why this team is set up for success if they can just get a certain level of quarterback play out of whoever is under center. Specifically, Jordan Mason I wrote at the time when they traded for him that was kind of the perfect back to complement Aaron Jones and to add, given just some of the things you see when you watch him play. And I mean, even what we saw when he came to US Bank Stadium last year as a member of the 49ers when McCaffrey was out, the advanced metrics, and then how he looked in training camp did nothing to kind of dissuade me from that. And you saw it come to fruition against the Bengals, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. He just runs hard. He plays with vision. Every single one of his runs gained at least 1 yard. So he's not getting stuffed in the backfield. And then part of that sometimes is out of a running back's control, like in the case of Chase Brown, who had like 3 yards on 10 carries. Like there's some stuff there that just wasn't his fault. But Jordan Mason, I think, is really good. Justin Jefferson has been relatively quiet by his standards. He's got 200 yards and a touchdown in 3 games. Part of that is because Carson Wentz had 173 passing yards yesterday, and that was more than JJ had in either of his first 2 games. Like the Vikings still haven't had a quarterback throw for 175 in a game this season, which is crazy. So Jefferson, better days are coming for him. But I mean, TJ Hawkinson finally got going in week 3. They're about to get Jordan Addison back. Jalen Naylor has looked good at times. We haven't seen much from Adam Thielen, but he should have some opportunities down the line eventually. So, I think that's another thing that I can confidently say is that the skill position group for the Vikings is talented.
Jordan Mason has been one of my favorite people to watch on this offense. When he gets going forward, it's really fun to watch him plow into defenses and defenders. Just kind of fear for their life there. Will, good stuff from you today. Go read all of his coverage over on Vikings on SI, as well as Twins, Gophers, and Timberwolves on SI. Hit subscribe to the YouTube channel here. It does help us get found. Notifies you every time we post a new video here on the channel. Talk to you tomorrow with another topic across Minnesota sports.